Welcome to the SMB Community Podcast with hosts Amy Babinchak, James Kernan, and Carl Polachek. Produced by Kernan Consulting and for the international MSP community. We are dedicated to making every IT professional a successful IT professional.
Hello and happy Monday. James, how are you today?
Doing good. Ready for a big week.
Oh, me too. Well, welcome everybody to this edition of the SMB Community Podcast. James and I have been discussing a bunch of things that we want to talk to you about today. The first one, though, we'd like to do the MSP question of the week. And the question came in is, how can Microsoft Windows 10 end of life create new business? But we want to expand that question a little bit to how can you plan with your clients for these end-of-life schedules and consistently bring in new business for yourself? To me, that's more important. If you're just now worrying about the Windows 10 end-of-life, then you've missed a lot of opportunities along the way to not find yourself in that position. I've seen a bunch of MSPs are like, well, I've got 3/4 of my clients still on Windows 10.
Mm-hmm.
That should not be.
Right.
You should all be on Windows 11 and you've got maybe a few people trailing behind or a few machines here and there that still need to be done that you're on cleanup at this point.
Right.
The projects should have happened a long time ago. And one of the things we always did it in my MSP was to plan out these end of life scenarios, because it's not just Microsoft and it's not just Windows that has end of life. It's, versions of the line of business software, it's Office software, it's everything that business uses technology wise. It's hardware. These all have end of life schedules, and you need to have a calendar and start planning out those projects and get your clients trained and used to the idea that they are upgrading everything on a regular schedule and keeping their business, up to date, current, modern, productive, all the things that good IT is supposed to bring to the business.
Right. Yeah, I see it as an opportunity to educate your customers and also educate prospects of what they should be doing and really why the end of life, just to break it down into a real simplistic level, why it's such a big deal is that it normally means, if it's in any software platform, if it's end of life, means the support ends and the patches end. And the hackers know that. So then they start writing, viruses to attack and exploit those vulnerabilities. And then that's the problem. So you want to make sure your customers aren't on that. You educate them. So I think there is an upside opportunity to plan out. We've got all the tools in place. Make sure you're planning out, replacing those systems or upgrading those systems. Do it as early as possible. Actually, one of my customers had rolled out a schedule for all of their contractual clients to upgrade all of this equipment. And they said if they fall off this schedule or if they delay it, then the price for them to fix it is going to go up because, it's just supply and demand. If you wait till the deadline and, then they're kind of looking at it almost like it's an after-hour scenario, and they're going to charge time and a half, to take care of that problem if they fall off their schedule. I thought that was interesting. Yeah, it's kind of harsh, but
It's bold.
it is bold. It is bold.
Yeah. Wow. I don't know if I would go that far with it, but I totally get the idea of having a schedule and a plan. And you mentioned using that with prospects, and I think that would be fantastic. MSPs are always looking something to differentiate yourself with. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to keep an eye on all of your stuff. We're going to make sure you don't fall behind. We're going to get you on regular schedules. That is part of taking away the worry of IT from the business owner. And that's one of the big reasons that they choose to contract with an MSP. It's not just to have somebody answer their help desk calls quickly. They're looking for, let me get rid of this headache and hire a professional to manage it for me.
Yeah, just Google, Microsoft Windows 10 end of life. You'll find all sorts of examples out there. But to Amy's point, I think it's smart as MSPs to be educating your community, your customers, your prospects, your local community. Be that thought leader. Tell them what they should be doing and use those little snippets on email blasts, your newsletters, social media posts. Those are all good teaser ads to educate and hopefully get some prospects to come back to you and ask for your help. So I,
Yeah.
I love that question.
Yep. I do too. I do too. So, hey, James, I saw a really amusing article. I mean, it's serious, but it's also funny. Um, there are so many drones happening in a college town in Texas, 800 an hour, if you can imagine. You take a big university and you have all of those students ordering stuff from Amazon, and Amazon starts delivering them all with drones.
So these were all Amazon drones, right?
These are all Amazon drones delivering packages, and the community decided to ban them because they said it was like having a fleet of chainsaws hovering over your head all the time. Can you imagine that, like, bzz, like if you lived close to the border of that university and having all those things flying
Yeah.
overhead all the time?
It'd be terrifying. It'd be like a war zone.
Isn't this is probably like a look into the future though, isn't it? Because like, Grubhub, Uber Eats, all these things, they all want to deliver stuff by drone. If every delivery service starts delivering by drone, because right now we have trucks and we got enough trucks zipping up and down the neighborhood to deliver stuff and cars and, everything. I see my neighbor across the street gets a delivery from Kroger's grocery store every week. And, Amazon truck probably stops at my house every week. There's a lot of trucks zipping around, but those trucks have, I don't know, what do they have? 100, 200 packages inside of them?
Yeah,
So
that's
imagine 200 drones all like all buzzing around for each truck that shows up in your neighborhood.
you gave me an idea, a future idea for like home builders and in commercial buildings to have drone drop-off points, like little helipads where they could drop off things. So so you
Totally.
yeah.
Like a reverse dumbwaiter, right? Instead of bringing things up from the basement kitchen where your cook is
Yeah.
is cooking away, it's put it on the roof, and then it,
The
it
roof.
then it then it drops down into your house.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. But just think of it, 800 an hour. I mean, you're constantly seeing and hearing things above you. That would be crazy. I get why they banned it, but
Yeah,
obviously it's pointing out a problem. I wonder what they're going to do in the future as more and more things are going that way, right?
yeah, yeah. I know they're trying to work on quieter drones, but the idea of silent drones is also kind of creepy.
Yeah, yeah. And that would be even creepier, yeah. 'Cause then you can't see them. You don't know what's going on. Those
You're
are the
right.
ones taking security pictures.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, it's kind of a fun article, so we'll share the link for that one. Um, saw in the news too that Zoom's market share and the demand for remote meetings is slipping. And
Yeah.
in the article is about Zoom, but um, I don't know if this is actually a Zoom problem. I mean, there's a bunch of things to unpack here, right? Zoom is like the poster child of meetings. They were a rapid growth company. They were empowered by the pandemic. Um, and Wall Street's a weird thing, right? The stock market. If you're a super high flying company growing at some gigantic rate, they just assume that that's going to continue forever,
Right.
which is never the case. At some point you top out. And then, it's hopefully slow but steady growth from that point on.
Yeah.
Um,
It was just like Peloton. Remember the Peloton bikes?
yeah.
The big Peloton craze that, cool bikes with the big screens,
Mhm.
interactive, you could, people couldn't go to the gym, so they would buy those Peloton bikes, though that was gold. Uh, and now, you can't give them away fast enough. So
I
that's
love my Peloton bike. But you know what? Peloton has turned it around. Right?
okay.
They had a business model that was dependent on selling those bikes, and now their app is the business model. They still have the bike and everything, but the Peloton app has come a long ways. You've got it on your phone as well, and it tracks your dog walks and your meditations, and they've expanded out beyond biking as well. So Peloton's turning into a success story, right? They started as a one-trick pony, bicycle, big screen, you know, great instructors, and now they expanded hugely, and we saw their stock drop and get beat up, but now it's back on the up again. Yeah.
Good that I didn't see that as I'm looking across the hallway, I see my coat hanging over the edge of my Peloton in my gym, so I'm gonna have to sync up with you and get more info on the app. I've
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
been
do
using
that.
mine up for a while.
Do that. It's pretty cool. I need to use it more too, but yeah, they've done a lot. So back to Zoom though. Um a lot's changed in meetings, right? I said at the top they were empowered by the pandemic, and they made business work. But things are changing. We've gone to more of a hybrid work scenario where people are back to the office, 3, 4 days a week, something like that.
Yeah.
So more meetings can happen in person.
Right. So
Um,
that makes sense, and even for Teams and, all the video meeting platforms, not just Zoom. I think because of the coming back to work, there's less demand for those tools. A lot of sales activity still happening on those, but something else that I've heard, we all know this in the technology channel. There's already too many meetings in your day. And,
mhm.
something that I'm a big fan of, it really came out of that book Traction, the EOS philosophies about running your meetings, start on time, end on time, have an agenda, and just follow the agenda to a T, with the timer, so your meetings are more meaningful. I people that I talk to, I try to help them with that to make sure that, those meetings are more meaningful, and you don't wanna just have another Zoom meeting just to have another Zoom meeting because it's hard to captivate that audience and keep people tuned in, if you're not there in person, so
Mhm.
and that makes sense to me because it's, post-pandemic, right?
Yeah, everybody do. We got meeting fatigue, and there's definitely a backlash against meetings. Although, I will say, don't take that too far. I saw somebody on LinkedIn the other day saying that they were cancel their one-on-one meeting with a staff member. That they have a regularly scheduled one-on-one meeting every quarter with their people, and they canceled it because they said, "Well, I looked at the numbers and they're doing fine, so I don't need to have that meeting." I was like,
Mm.
"I don't know. I think you still need to have those one-on-ones. It's not all about you." Right?
I agree. I
Yeah.
I agree. I agree with that. Those whether you do a phone call, a video meeting, I like getting face to face if you can, because then you can watch their body language, and I think those meetings are so much more impactful. But the
Mhm.
next best thing would be those video meetings,
Mhm.
and I think it's really important as a leader in the workplace to provide that feedback of how people are doing, what they can improve on, what's going right, what's not going right. But our employees need to be motivated. They need direct communication. Don't beat around the bush. Just give them that direct communication. I think that's really important. That's a great point.
Well, yeah, and a big point of that one-on-one meeting, though, is about you getting feedback from your employees too.
Mhm.
You need to give them the opportunities to do that. Maybe in a meeting of other people in their department, they might not want to say something, but on a one-on-one meeting, they may open up more.
Yeah.
So yeah, so don't cancel those one-on-one meetings. Cancel the meetings or shorten other meetings. I know Teams has been prompting me to shorten meetings. It also gives me uh, a monthly, or maybe it's weekly even, um, showing me how often my meetings started on time and ended on time.
Mm, okay.
Right.
I like that. That's a great
Yeah.
feature.
Yep. And it's using intelligence on that. So, of course the meeting starts on time because it's a Teams meeting and it has a schedule, but it's actually using intelligence to see when the conversation actually begins. So when the actual start of that meeting is.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I'm kind of a
Yeah.
stickler for starting on time. I teaching a AI class right now, and I told everybody from the get-go, like, you need to be here on time because I'm going to start talking on time, whether you're here or not.
Yeah, because if you don't start on time, or if schedule a meeting to go 30 minutes and then you go over every single time, to me, that's I don't know, it's a poor leadership trait. It feels like you can't control things, and I'm with you, Amy. I like starting meetings on time regardless of who's there. I'm gonna start the meeting on time, and I'm gonna end it on time, just out
Yeah.
of respect for my coworkers. So,
Yeah, me
um,
too. You and I are 100% aligned on that. I'm big on the ending on time too. Yeah,
yeah.
I've served on a couple of committees, and sometimes in a group scenario like that, meetings can go on. And as the chair of the committee, I'm always like, "Our time is up. We'll see you guys next time." It's like,
Annie, have you seen a tool called 90.io? 90.io spelled out.
no,
It's it's a meeting platform, software as a service, but a lot of my clients that I had taken through my EOS like program, uh, you know, I talked about the running your management meetings, but with a tight agenda, and each one of the agenda items actually has a time limit on it. That it wants you to go scorecard in 5 minutes, and then what are the to-dos? Let's review the to-dos from last week. That should be 5 minutes or less. And then what are the employee highlights, for example, or customer highlights? And then you go into your issues and opportunities. What do we need to talk about today? There's a timer feature inside that 90.io tool, and it keeps meeting notes on everything. It lets you know what issues or opportunities you processed, how long each one of those sections on the agenda took you, and then you can rate the meeting, and then the meeting notes goes out to everybody, and or me, the consultant or coach that's connected to them. I love that tool because it summarizes things, like Copilot, can.
Mhm.
But the timer feature is one of my favorites. So wanted to do a shout out to 90.io. That's a cool tool.
Nice. That is a cool tool. I like that idea. People are not born knowing how to run a meeting. I could, I mean, you do. Hopefully you had great managers in the past, so you have something to emulate. But having a tool like that would be a great training tool
Mhm.
for new managers, new committee leads, that kind of thing. Uh,
Exactly.
so that's a good call out, James. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Hey, Channel Futures yet again had an article telling us that M&A is up and doing well. So they claimed it was down a little bit last year. I didn't feel like I saw that, but 11%. I'm not sure what part of the market that they're referring to. They may be referring to the larger end of the market on that. I know you and I play more in the smaller end, and we keep seeing growth and growth and growth. Um, and so they're predicting a big pickup this year and a 30% increase in the last quarter of last year. So lots
Yeah.
of movement.
That's a lot of movement for sure. That's what I'm seeing. And what's so funny is I remember I spoke at an M&A event last in Q4 last year. And it was down in Dallas, and they most of the speakers in the room were really talking and looking for opportunities 10 million and above. So it was more of the mid to large market channel technology partners. And these were the stats that were coming down from them, but nobody said that there was an uptick in the Q4 activity. This article kind of confirmed what I was seeing because I saw a big uptick in Q4. And then, it's been crazy busy in kind of the mid to lower market for sure. So
Mhm.
I'm with you. I think these numbers were really focused on more of the larger acquisition activity out there. So, but it's been busy so far in 25.
Yeah. Yep. As we've said before, M&A is now just a fact of life in the IT market, in the MSP market. So it should be part of your growth strategy and definitely should be part of your exit strategy. All right, James, there's an article that says that MSPs without CMMC certification risk losing government business. Uh,
Yeah, there's that. I think that's big news. Amy, you and I have been in the industry for a while, and I remember back when HIPAA hit the scene. 15 plus years ago or longer. It was like, "Oh, no, you need to do this or these huge fines the government's gonna come down on you." And then it was like nobody was ever held accountable. It was just kind of dead air. Now it's slowly catching up,
Mhm.
not just with HIPAA, but CMMC specifically, and that really relates to any MSP that's doing business with the federal government or doing business with their supply chain, like the government prime contractors. So you need to get that certification, and there's a couple people inside of our peer groups that specialize on that, and these guys are so busy right now, they can't keep up. And, there's also those are helping MSPs or other companies, for example, become, compliant, and there's a whole process, you can't do it overnight, it takes time. So,
Yes.
there's also some overlay companies in the channel
Mhm.
too, if you want that you can leverage to help you, um, you know leverage those services so you don't have to become compliant there as a partner. But it's big news because it's coming down here in 2025.
It's gotten really complicated.
Yes.
It's not as easy as it once was, and there's fees involved. There's ongoing training involved. It's a big deal. And more interesting to me, I think, is of course you mentioned HIPAA. CMMC has the benefit of learning from the mistakes of HIPAA. That was like the first time they tried to make a standardized private. It's really just a privacy regulation, and that part I think has been successful, but it hasn't been successful from a security initiative. So CMMC definitely had the benefit to learn from that. Like you said, there was 15 years between times. So that's a good thing, and I think it's much better regulation, and it does have teeth. HIPAA was left to each state to do the enforcement of it and set the fines and all that stuff, and the states just never did.
Right.
So CMMC, the fines and the regulation and all of that all happens at the federal level, and it's got serious teeth. So um, I wanted to remind folks that NSITSP has a whole cybersecurity 12-month program going on. And in uh, in March, the topic is the shared responsibility model for cybersecurity, and this refers back to NIST. So right, there's part of things that your vendors have to do, part of things that the client has to do, part things that you have to do. So that really applies to any of the regulations that you're going to be going for. And then in April, they're having an introduction to NIST. So, and they had earlier in February, there was a CMMC one that's by one of those overlay companies that you can partner with.
Mm.
They're doing training with you, but then also supplying the higher levels of CMMC, right? So you get in, do the basic training, they become your partner and have those higher levels of certification and registration with the government, so you don't have to pay that $5,000 a year to be able to get into the programs and be certified yourself. So a lot of benefits there. If you're not in watching that 12-month series, that in itself is a great reason to join up with the NSITSP and get that done. It's the future. It's the way the future of our industry is going, for sure.
And there's a lot of money. I've talked to a lot of MSPs that stay away from the federal marketplace and the federal prime contractors. When I was in the channel in the business running my own company, we did a ton of business with the federal marketplace. They're hard to get into. It's very different than commercial accounts. But once you get in, there could be huge contracts. Huge contracts. The number one customer prospect in the world, the number one largest gobbler potential customer in the world is the federal government, the U.S. federal government. They have the biggest IT spend across the board than anybody else. So I think it's something certainly worthy to look into. And I love that that 12-month class that you guys are doing. That's pretty powerful. So I
Yeah.
encourage you to check that out.
Yep. So do you want to talk about some cool AI tools? I know, we should almost make that a series.
Yeah, it should be a series because I was like, I don't know if we have time for that today. We might have to save that for next week because it's a long conversation, especially when I ask you what your favorite ones are and why. I think you'll go on for a half hour or
I
longer.
think I already sent you probably 10 of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Let's make it a series. We will start to talk about cool AI tools, and we promise not to take up the entire show with cool AI tools, but we'll just start to bring some of these up because I don't know. Is there a million of them yet? It's got to be getting close. I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many. Which ones are actually useful? Which ones you get value out of? What are you doing? If listeners, if you have tools that you are finding really productive aids for you
Mhm.
or for your clients, I mean, if you see stuff that businesses are using, non-IT businesses, to me, that's even more powerful because we would like to see all the MSPs bringing those things to their clients. So let us know what you got.
Yeah. Yeah, we'd love to hear that. So great prompt, Amy. Just reach out to us. You can send me any information on cool AI tools at james@kernanconsulting.com. We'll talk about those on the program. We'll have some time to do some research. And then if you've got a question of the week as well, by all means, please reach out. We love hearing from you. Love the shout outs that come often, and it keeps Amy and I encouraged that you guys are actively listening and that this is helpful information. So reach out. We'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. All right. New series coming soon. Hey, everybody, thank you for listening today, and we'll see you next time.
All right. See you next time, everybody. Take care. Thank you for tuning in to the SMB Community Podcast. If you found this interesting or fun, please subscribe, share with your friends, and give us a thumbs up on your favorite social media. We would love to hear from you, so reach out anytime on the website at smbcommunitypodcast.com.